Hi! Welcome to Harmony Baptist Children's Corner. My name's Dave. This is COVID Home Edition number 15. Wow, that's a lot. For July 26th. How's it going? Alright, a couple of weeks ago I was talking about being courageous, and we were talking about David and Goliath, and we decided that David wasn't necessarily courageous for chasing after Goliath, going after Goliath, but he was more courageous for doing what he knew God wanted him to do that day. He just did what he knew was he supposed to do, so he did it. That was being courageous. Now, the thing is, before he was courageous, he had to be something else. He had to be willing to do that. He had to be willing to be God's hands and feet that day. He had to be willing to do what God wanted him to do. I'm pretty sure he got up in the morning and said, "Hey God, this is me today for you. What do you want? What do you need from me? I want to be your hands and feet. Let me do what you want me to do." And I understand that. I get that. I try to pray that every morning myself. I try to say, God, show me somebody I can talk to today. Give me something I can talk about you to, or just something like that. I try to do that every day. You want to be willing. But are we really willing? Are you really, really willing? I'll give you an example. A few years ago, my wife, I'll start even back. A few years ago at our church, the pastor announced an opportunity to go on a mission trip to Africa. What they were going to do was they were going to set up camp. First time they wanted to do camp. Now, if you don't know, my wife and I are program directors at Camp Oneida. We've been doing it for 15 years. We have a great time, absolutely. I've been going to camp for 50 years. Donna's been going for 40 years. We just love camp. So the opportunity to go to camp, go to Africa and set up camp. And she looked at me and said, "You should go. You've been going to camp for 50 years. You love camp. You're a good camper. You administrate well. You set up the program. You do well, and blah, blah, blah." And I looked at her and I said, "You should go. You love camp. You work really well with the kids. You get along well with the kids. You know how things go. You straighten me out when I'm messing up. You should go." And we both said, "No, you should." And we both said, "No, you should." And neither of us really wanted to go. We did. I didn't want to go to Africa. I always felt my mission trip is Camp Oneida, and that's where I go, and that's my mission, and I'm not interested in leaving Canada, even when we go on vacation. Donna's been on a couple of cruises, like down south, and go ahead, I don't want to go. I like going east, I like going west, I like going north. I'm not interested in going south, I just don't want to go. So even though I say every day, I'm God, I'm willing to, I want to do what you want me to do, and here's an opportunity to go and do camp, which I'm skilled at apparently, I wasn't really willing. I didn't really want to do it. I would have gone if it was like, "Yeah, you should go," and yeah, we got the money, and people said you should. I probably would have. I don't know. I really don't. I wasn't willing to go. Now Donna, she was kind of, she's always been interested. She doesn't mind traveling, and she's always been interested in a mission trip, but it just didn't work for her if I didn't want to go, and it wasn't the right thing, and she just, nah. And the next week, and I quote Donna, she was cranky. Those are her words. So she didn't go to church. And the pastor actually brought out information, like a pamphlet on this trip. And I grabbed the pamphlet and I took it home and I said, "You should go. You would like this. You're good with kids. You're good with camp. You like traveling. You should go." And she said, "Are you going to come?" And I said, "No, I don't really want to. I'm not willing to go." Well, then she said, "Well, I don't want to go without you. I don't. But the thing is, God recognized that she was willing. Recognized that I wasn't. Even though I said, "I'm willing to do what you want, God," I really wasn't willing to do that. I didn't want to do that. She kind of did, but she wanted something. So then Cassie comes in. Cassie comes home and she looks at it. She goes, "Oh, cool, yeah, well, I wouldn't mind doing this way." And Donna says, "I'll go with you." So the two of them went, "Yay!" So the two of them decided to go to Africa and do this thing on camp. Great. That's fantastic. They're willing to go. I love it. And now it's a lot of money. A lot of money. And there's two of them. And I'm like, "Sorry guys, I can't afford that." And they're like, no problem. We're willing to do the work to fundraise. We'll do this, we'll do that. We're willing to do that. And they did. They did great. And God blessed them with giving some money from the fundraising. They had a couple of super sandwiches. They were doing really well. Because they were willing, it was working, But then, how sometimes just some things get in the way. The camp fell through in Africa. At the Africa end, whether they couldn't get the place they wanted or whatever, it fell through. And they decided to have something else. It wasn't they weren't going to do the trip, but they thought they were going to do like a computer camp in the city, you know, about math. Well, both Donna and Cassie went, no, I'm not willing to do that. And they didn't. They weren't willing, so they didn't go. And they didn't go on the trip that year. So much as she was willing to go, she really wasn't willing for that, you know? And then the next year, you know, she was busy and we didn't hear anything. But the following year, we hear the trip's back on. They're trying to do camp again. They want to do camp. And this is the first time in camp. Like they don't do camp in Africa. Not like we do camp here. It's just not the same thing. They don't have it. They've never heard of it. Camp is a North American thing. I've actually read a book where we should close our churches and just open camps, because you can really, really find what's the word I'm looking at? A spiritual closeness at camp. I don't know why it is, but God lives at Camp Oneida. I can tell you that. It's great. Anyways, so they're going to do camp. They're going to do camp. And I said to Donna, you know, you should go. And she's like, I'd like to, but I don't really have the money. And I said, I'm sorry, I still don't have the money, you know. And she said, you know, Cassie can't go, because Cassie's now gone off to college, just a couple years later. And she says, I'm not really willing to do that much work again and be doing it by myself. Now, there's a couple other people from the church who are going to go, but they really didn't need to do the fundraising. So Donna would kind of be doing it, and she just wasn't willing to do that work. So she kind of took a pass on it. And I'm still not willing to go to Africa. Sorry, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. But no, I'm not willing. But so we go away to camp, or we're going to go to camp. Camp's in August, or the trip's in August, and the camp's in August, and it comes to June, and just about the end of June, the one woman who's going, like the other woman in church who's going on the trip with her, with somebody else, comes to Donna and says, my partner can't go. Come up at the last second that they can't go now. The trip is already paid for. Would you like to go? You don't have to pay. It's already done. So willing Donna was absolutely willing to do that. She came to me, should I go? And I was like, are you kidding? This is God taking care of you. Absolutely you should go. It's a blessing. So away she went. She's all right. Now she's got 5 weeks. 5 weeks to get ready. She's got to do all kinds of paperwork, passports and visas and this, that, and the other thing, permission to enter their country. She's got to get all her shots, and there's a long time doing that and a lot of shots. Didn't know that it would all come together. Of course it did. Of course it did. So there she goes. She's at, because she was willing to do these things. Now, she met, it's funny, now that they've got this group of them, now there's 12 to 15 of them from across Canada, and they're going to Africa to set up camp for the first time. You know, and these people had never met each other. They were going to meet in Toronto. On the day, Donna actually left camp early. She had to leave on the Thursday. We usually go to Saturday. Well, we do go to Saturday. She just left on Thursday. And we had a little bit of a laying of hands on her. It was a really powerful moment. And she said she physically felt something. It was really neat. I'll talk to her about that sometime if you want. Anyway, so off she goes. She goes to Toronto. Now, she's supposed to meet all these other people that come across all the way from British Columbia, and then picked up people as they come across. They're all meeting together in Toronto. Then they're taking a plane to Montreal, then a plane to Brussels in Belgium, and then the plane to Africa. So they go to Toronto, and the Toronto plane is 9 hours late. And then it's late getting to Montreal, and they held the plane up in Montreal, so the people there were mad, but they got on, and they fly over to Brussels. Well, the Brussels plane didn't wait for the 9 hours, so it took off. So now there's just so many things getting in the way. Something or someone is just an enemy to this trip, you know. So they're over now in Brussels. They find another way to get there. They're going to go through Turkey down to Africa. So they fly into Istanbul. While they're in Istanbul, there's a terrorist bombing on the other side of the city. I'm at home reading all this news, catching her texting me, and the news is going on. There's a bombing. We're flipping out. I'm getting the kids at camp to pray. I get the people at church to pray. When they're in Istanbul, they get out, they got a flight there, but they have to leave two behind because there's not enough room so there's mother and son, they stayed behind. And the willingness of people to do what they needed to do to help this camp start just amazes me. They finally all get there. Donna's got no luggage. Her luggage didn't come till the second week. She got on the bus to go and meet these kids, and she said it's amazing what these kids were willing to do to come to camp. There was kids who missed the bus and walked all night to get to camp. Like 20 to 30 miles must have been they walked to get to camp. There was teachers there and leaders and pastors who were willing to do it. They'd never run camp. They had no idea. The women leaders were teachers. And they showed up. Remember we talked about high heels? That's what they wore. They wore high heels. Now they're like wedges, but they're all wearing high heels. One of the electives, if you guys go to camp, you know, an elective was footy ball. Well, they went out there and they're playing soccer, but they're playing footy ball in these wedges because they were willing to do what it took for these kids to have fun. Donna said, now this is one thing that you can do as far as is willing to do. Donna said she never saw a group of kids who was so completely willing to do what was asked of them. If you've been to camp, you know there's always a few kids, oh, we're going to play this game now. I don't have that game. I haven't played. Well, you know, or I don't feel good. I don't want to play. I'm going to sing in the nurse's cabin. And fine. There's always a group of those kids. We always have something different for them. You know, try to keep them not sidelined. We want to keep them involved. But there's always a group. And you must see that at school sometimes, where there's just a bunch of kids who just don't want to do nothing. Donna said in Africa, none of them. They were all willing. What are we doing now? Let's do it. And 100%. And they're right into it. They're right into everything. What about you? Are you willing? I mean, I always say in the morning, God, make me your hands and feet. I'm willing to do it. But am I really willing? I didn't want to go to Africa. I'm not willing to do certain things. I want to do what God wants me to do, but am I allowed to put like caps on it? Okay, I'll do this, but the way it is though, God kind of lets me do that. He offers me choices, and He lets me choose, and sometimes I choose no. He said, okay, that's the way it is. Are you willing to do everything He wants you to do? Are you willing to be courageous enough to do what He wants you to do? All right. That's all I got. I hope you get something out of that this week. Willingness is something you have to start with. Courage comes after. You just want to, you got to get up and say, yeah, God, I'm in. What do you want? Show it to me and I'll do it. And you don't be afraid to say, hey, God, I'm not really sure about this one. Can you just kind of make sure? He'll tell you. He'll let you know. Absolutely. He'll give you a sign. He'll tell somebody to tell you something. Something will happen. You'll know. Don't be afraid to ask. But on the other hand, are you willing to do what God asks? All right, see you next week. Ciao.